Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. That was an interesting interaction after the salah with regard to the children. It said that Hassan and Hussein, they were playing in the masjid, and some tried to make an argument that this was proof for them playing in the masjid. And so that was posed to some of the scholars, and some of them came out and they said that Umar would discipline the children. And so we're at a cross between making the masjid just a place of salah and strict silence, and making the masjid much more than that, as far as a place for the family. And the situation that we have is that sure, the children, they should be silent and so on and so forth. That's in the ideal case. But if we don't have the space for the children in the masjid, and we don't allow for them to disturb us, there will be no masjid in the future. As much as we, may not like to say that, but that's a reality. There'll be no next generation. As they come to the masjid, and they come with their parents. That's a massive achievement. It's a big achievement. And if they become accustomed to the masjid and their hearts become attached to the masjid, that's a greater achievement. And if they become people of the masjid, then we made a big achievement, even bigger than that. And yes, there's a way to talk to the children. That's the reality. It's not to make anybody feel uncomfortable, but there's a way to talk to the children. And we have to realize also it's very difficult for parents to bring their children to the masjid and participate in the masjid and govern over their children 100%. That's all of our responsibilities. So we have to find a balance. I spent my day today maybe about 4 or 5 hours or more disciplining Muslim children. Because I have a position in Pennsylvania. I'm the vice principal of an Islamic school. And wallahi, towards the end of the day, I almost cried. Because we had to suspend one Muslim youth from the bus entirely for the whole year. It wasn't necessarily my decision. It was those that are above me in authority. But you know what got me on the issue? It's a Palestinian family. So I was thinking to myself, look at our condition. You have on one side genocide and pushing the people out historically. Then you come here to where we're at. This is just one example. It's just one example. And then we're losing the youth. And the problem is that just a couple weeks ago, we pulled him off of the bus because he was choking a Muslim youth. And part of the decision to pull him off of the bus was that he hit a girl. And he's been bullying a girl. So the youth, the issue of honestly, people, if you permit me, Wahid, that the children are disturbing us in Salah is the least of our concerns. Wallahi, the least of our concerns. Not to say that that's not right. We have to teach them respect for the Salah. Those that hold that position, there's an edge to that, right? But that reality, we have to learn as a community to make it comfortable for the children. We have to. Making it comfortable for the children doesn't mean just following all of their desires. But we have to be careful. We have to be careful. I saw that destroy a whole community. One of the brothers from, at that time, Maghrib Institute, was bringing the young brothers that were working in the gas stations. Let's talk real talk. Working in the gas station, at least in Ohio, meant you were selling Easy Widers, Black and Milds, cigarettes. If they had alcohol in it, they were selling alcohol. You understand? And whatever else was there. So he was taking these young brothers from the community and he was bringing them to the masjid, and they were playing basketball and they would make qiyam al-layl together. One of our older brothers got mad because the door got broken and shut down the whole masjid on them. We could have bought the door 1,000 times over. And it's those same youth that is like I mentioned last week. You weren't here, Wahid. It's the same youth that are getting the Muslim girls pregnant and doing all this other stuff. And it's not to bring out fitna people, but we have to realize we're in survival mode as an ummah. So the masjid here is Safinat al-Nuh. It's our safeguard. So we have to think, how can we, even with the sisters, if we go into some communities, the porta has to be established, 100%. But yet, in Walmart, in the business, in the office, there's ikhtilat with females all day long, every day. For the brother to become a doctor, the only thing that was separating between him and the female interns was some door. I know the stories. So we can't live like that schizophrenic lifestyle. We have to teach, ourselves and the children how to function, how to establish the deen. And it's uncomfortable. We don't know. I can tell you for sure, there was a situation, and one time a brother was arguing with his wife, and she had some issue with him. And so he wanted to take the children to the masjid. He wanted to take the children to the masjid. This is after a day's work. He's arguing with her to be a father to take the children to the masjid. They had their own issues. So he's coming to the masjid after what? Yeah, he doesn't need to argue with the brother. You know what I'm saying in the salah line. Allahu alam, what came even before that? Doing work. You know what he went through doing work. So it's not to criticize anybody, but empathy is how community survives. Being empathetic towards each other. You know what I'm saying? Take the kid. Yeah, hey, little Hassan, little Jose, come here. Joke with him. And teach them. Next time in Salah, try to be a little more quiet. Just move on. Yeah, it's not a big issue, in that regard. Huh? Yeah. Right. But somewhere along the line, we can find the happy medium. Mm-hmm. But uncle, we respect that position. But then if we send them to play, how is the children going to learn the salah? So they learn the salah bitadrib. So when they see you as the uncle, they see you pray. Okay, they see the other brothers pray, they see people serious. And then slowly we integrate them. It's all of our duties. Mm-hmm. Mhm. And there's different ways to teach. He's not obligated to pray. At that age, he's not obligated to pray. He's learning the obligation. Right. But if we may get into a fight,
Yeah, it was very upset. The boy was crying in the car, so I think the dad really yelled at him really bad. I think the situation got escalated more than it should be, and I think the kid is 6 years old, so he's the لا حساب عليه. The kid like he's very hyperactive. The dad said, "I know my kids are very hyper." I think it's the dad's role and us to discipline the kid and help him. But the way that happened tonight is a lesson for all of us that we should be more patient and more empathetic with each other as a community. And definitely, I hope to see the guy again. I told him I want to see you. He goes like, I live right here, so inshallah he's gonna be back. Inshallah, I'm hoping. And I think it was just a little kid, and there's no big deal at all.
yeah, there's the point. Also, what the uncle is saying has his point. We don't have to clash. We have to discipline our kids. Is the way that sometimes, unfortunately, it takes these types of situations. Sometimes it takes the the stick, and
This can happen anywhere. I think can happen anywhere.
it can.
This is very normal. What happened tonight is very normal on all levels, and it's a good lesson for all of us. I think this guy is if he comes back, he's gonna be more than welcomed and to the community, and we'll take care of it, inshallah.
Inshallah.
I'm pretty sure it just went out of control tonight. Yeah.
It
Right.
yeah. That's not hypothetical. That is a real scenario. Or sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes the brother just wants to come, and the wife says, make sure you take them with you. And so he wasn't really ready to deal with that, or he's becoming that type of father that's becoming more involved. He's not doesn't have complete control. You see what I'm saying? But somewhere we have to find the balance, because what the uncle is saying too is one point, يعني احترام المكان, a respect for the place. But then we have to realize what we're confronting in this society. Whether we like it or not, it's not a perfect ideal situation. So we can push people out in a way.
I think the dad is very strict. I think he's very strict from the way the boy was crying, but still like in a good way. The boy wasn't like crying like crazy, but I saw his tears. It's just that the kid also could be a problem to the parent, and we are actually helping the kid against the parent more, or we don't know how the day, like you were saying, how the day of that guy has been and why he ended up here and how it got out of control, out of his hands, and then all of our hands too at the same time. And
So this, I mean,
it's
I mean,
tough
I
to
think in
control.
general, just we're talking about in generality. This case with that brother, I know him. He's going to be back. The kid is going to be fine. He's up to keep it out on the street. We know him. In general, I think we're just having a conversation. We're not talking about specific
Yes.
cases. I think in general that yes, there's some parents that come here and they tell their kids in the car, hey, you want to sit next to me during salah? After salah, go play. Right? Maybe the other ones are not doing that same thing. So if the parents come, yes, they want the kids to be in the masjid, and the kids are running amok while the salah is going on. At least during the salah, the parents should take some responsibility for their children. After that, yes, the masjid is open, the one in front of the school play, all those things. But this is case by case. Sometimes, I remember when my kids were young, you bring them, they're like, yeah, I want to stand next to you, and as soon as you go into the salah, they're running around. So we just gotta be patient, inshallah. Obviously you want to make the masjid a welcoming place. Alhamdulillah, we are a very welcoming masjid, but things happen here. But I'm not worried about this case. I know the father, I know the kids.
So everybody's good now. Well, he gave you the green light not to worry.
They'll be back tomorrow, inshallah. I know the father, I know the kids. They're our members from the.
I mean, it makes for a good discussion. Makes for a good discussion on what is our role. That's why also building a relationship, people, with the children is how you get to them. Building a relationship with the children, going for the long run. You know what I'm saying? But sometimes the stick is necessary. There's no doubt about that. I wanted to focus on the little bit of time that we have left on a very touchy issue. It comes up in the story of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. And it comes back to the issue of preparation, giving the youth preparation, or even dealing with really sticky situations. So here it comes up, Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, we know the story, was even more handsome as a young man than he had been as a boy. And the wife of the Egyptian noble wanted him. This is how this is the language of Abu al-Hasan Nadwi, rahmatullahi alayhi. Indeed, she wanted him so much she could not control herself. She called Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam into her bedroom and bolted the door. Then she commanded him to come to her bed. What do you think about that? Anybody? I know it's uncomfortable, but what do you think about that situation? Do you think in today's time in our society is odd? See, we prepare our children for the what? The ideal scenarios. And we also fall into the trap of thinking that the men are the ones that don't control themselves. But the reason why I mentioned is, it's kind of a sensitive thing is because in reality, part of parenting is what? Teaching our children how to deal with that type of stuff. That's extremely important. I know brothers who have told me that their corruption of themselves came from older women. It's not something that we like to talk about, but when we talk about parenting, if we're not preparing our children to deal with the reality, it's easy for them to fall. Period. Boys and girls, or young men and young women. Yusuf did not deceive himself. He knew that he could be as weak as any man. What do you think about that? And that he found this woman attractive. What do you think about that? Everybody's like, quiet. You know the damage that happens when this type of knowledge, a youth doesn't have it. And then after they make the marriage contract, they end up somewhere. It's halal. You see what I'm saying? But they end up not knowing how to handle themselves. Or one person is not healthy in the way they handle themselves. You know the type of damage? If it was a problem, people, it wouldn't be mentioned in the story. If it was a problem, if it was knowledge is for haram for us to know, this is a real scenario. Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam is in touch. They say all men need to be in touch with their feelings. Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam is really clear on what's going on with himself and the situation. He's not fooled by the situation by any means. That's important. And not only in the reality of a young man, but it's important also for an older man. Because when people start having marital problems, usually that starts to open the door to find someone that they can talk to. And the same thing with the sisters. And usually is the device. And I've seen that go in a very bad way. But look at where the story goes. But a true servant of Allah cannot want to do an evil act. And look at the thinking here. Look at the thinking. Yusuf is in touch with himself. And he knows human nature. He didn't deceive himself. I can handle this. I got this. I'm a person of Iman. That's not how the story goes. Yusuf did not deceive himself. He knew that he could be as weak as any man. And he identified, he found the woman attractive. But a true servant of God cannot want to do an evil act. Then look how kind the Egyptian noble had been to Yusuf. How evil and act it would be to cheat him as his wife wished. There's some thinking going on in the whole process. So Yusuf prayed to Allah to protect him from her. And Allah did protect him. Yusuf reminded the woman of her husband. He set a boundary. He set a boundary. He said to her, "It is surely true that my master has given me a good home. It is surely true that those who do evil do not profit by it." Yusuf had remembered Allah in the damp and dark well into which his jealous brothers had thrown him. He remembered Allah now amid the enticing perfumes of this woman's bedroom, but the woman's thoughts were far removed from Allah. She was not in control of herself, and she did not want to be She wanted Yusuf. To get away from her, Yusuf ran for the door. She raced after him and caught him back by the back of his shirt, and the shirt was torn. Just outside the door, they ran into the master of the house coming the other way. Yo, this is when we talk about professional development for Muslims in the workplace and preparing our community for what is really out there and how to deal with this. This is extremely important. What happens in the office? Who do you interact with in the office? Anybody? Yeah. Could it possibly be that the manager is a female sometimes? What about the secretary? Possible. Yeah, mostly, he said. Those are compromising situations. See what I'm saying? And the problem with the workplace is we practically live in the workplace. You know what I'm saying? It's ours. We, you know, if we don't have freedom, we're living in those work environments. And I feel sorry for some professions, like for instance, the medical field. I feel sorry for them because of the amount of ikhtilat, you know, that exists in that type of environment. But not only that, in the store and all of that comes up, you know, there's different scenarios. But one of the things that we get from the story that's very clear is Yusuf knows the danger of the situation. Yusuf knows what the feelings are. Yusuf knows it's wrong, and Yusuf tries to make an exit out of the situation, but it's not enough. The reason why I mentioned that is because that's one of those cases, you know, where sexual harassment charges and all that comes through. And in this scenario, it's fake. In this scenario, it's fake. She had power over him. See what I'm saying? She had power. She raced after him and caught him by the back of his shirt, and the shirt was torn just outside the door. They ran into the master of the house coming the other way. His wife was quick to find her tongue. What is the right reward for someone who means to do an evil act against your family? Should he not be sent to prison or painfully beaten? You know, that is a really deep situation. Why? Because she made herself the victim. She made herself the victim, and that cost Yusuf his freedom. So what lesson can we take from that? What lesson can we take from that? Face value. That's true. But I'm looking for something else. That's true. That's a very apparent lesson. What do you underlying here? What is this story teaching us? Yeah, she was willing to throw him under the bus. You know, I ran into that today when I was judging. I had to judge between two little kids, right? So there's one boy, he gets in trouble on a regular basis. You know, thank you for that. And so the little girl, she comes and she gets the support of the teacher, and the teacher's like, oh, he was crying today. He made her cry. You know, so, you know, the boy has a reputation. So I'm listening. So I had both of them together. I brought both of them. I asked her, I said, how do you feel if I bring him here? You have to learn boundaries. You have to learn how to protect yourself and this and that. So alhamdulillah that the boy, he spoke out for himself. And he said, but didn't you call the other girls and you were taking a vote among yourself and you were asking people, how many people don't like me? How many people they find me annoying? And when he did that, she automatically, no, I didn't. It's like, you had something in for the young brother too. You see what I'm saying? Yes, you for whatever reason you were crying, but you had something in it for him. And you used it against him in this situation. Moral of the story is like, there's compromise, there's situations that we can be in that are compromising situations. Especially young boys, especially young men. The girls, we do that. We tell them, right, don't we train them for that type of thing? Be careful with this and don't do this. But the boys, we kind of just let them go. And there's scenarios and situations that are very compromising, and we don't prepare them for that. Am I talking, am I losing everybody here? Or, huh? Let's just talk real talk. Marijuana became legalized, right? There was a period of time where, I forget, did it just become a recreational usage in New Jersey? Yeah, it was just 2 years ago, but not in New York, right? New York, they sell everywhere. But there was a situation, and I believe it still exists, that if you utilize marijuana in your what? You're driving, you can get into a legal jam. You can get into a legal jam. There's some situations that are compromising situations. That's what I want to get to. That we're going with the flow, and it's a compromising situation. Even you have a right to own a legal firearm. You have a right. But if you did this over here, if you went for the medical card to go to the dispensary, you're going to have an issue over here. The example that I'm trying to give is that we need to be teaching these boys, don't just go with the flow just to go with the flow. Think about how things impact you. Because it was a short period of time. I know that the law had changed, but yeah, because it's been about 4 years. So one of the things that I began to realize is that the culture is pushing these young boys into a certain direction where there's legal consequences sometimes that they don't realize, but also there's other consequences. I haven't seen anybody that went that so-called legal route to utilize marijuana, and then we had the whole fatwa battle over it with, subhanAllah, some of our mashaykh, they got really technical. Oh yeah, for medical reasons you can invest in it, because they saw a big payday. They didn't care about the consequences on the community. And I'm pausing this for a moment to say that how you begin to see the multiple impacts. I haven't seen anybody come out of that with sanity. The usage of the legal marijuana, because it's genetically manipulated, people went with it with the culture, and they started saying, well, I'm depressed, I'm this, I need it for this, I need it for that. And it went the wrong route. That's one of those situations where if we don't actually teach the youth why it is that we don't agree with that, then the culture changes the meaning of it. We don't agree with it because it takes away from your intellect and your ability to make clear decisions. And it may not always be the case that the medical marijuana may be beneficial. It needs some research. Needs some research. But what we learn from, let's go back to the story. What we learn, those are like life examples, how you can put yourself in a bad situation and how it can become more and more complex for you and more problematic. In this situation, this is a compromising situation, let's say, for the workplace. How do we teach our youth in the workplace, in the college dorm, and so on and so forth, how to comport themselves or conduct themselves? Do we have open conversations? Or do we just let them figure it out on their own? Anybody? Anyone? Huh? How is it a tough question? We're talking about the safeguarding our own children so that they can be. What's in theory the answer? Anybody? Raise your voice a little bit, please. Yeah. Yeah, she went rogue. And we'll close out with that part of the story. But one of the things that I was contemplating or reflecting on is Yusuf, and it goes back to being ideal, but we have to make an effort. Yusuf was solid in who he was in his relationship with Allah Ta'ala. Some of the stuff that we're talking about, some of it is like psychologically based, some of it is like cultural awareness, but bottom line as Muslims here, Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, he was aware of what was going on in his heart. And this is what I was trying to point to the other times, the other sessions that we had. Yusuf, he had an understanding of what was going on in his heart. And what is the whisper of shaitan, right? And how it is that you please Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. As parents, we owe that to our children. We owe that basic education, to our children. And the reality here is, look, her husband knew that Yusuf was innocent, and he pushed in favor of his corrupt wife. And in that situation, Yusuf preferred the prison to the situation that he was in, because what she did is that she involved other women. And she made the situation even more complicated so that she could what? She can have that sense that, yeah, you see, it's his fault. I'm right. And I hate to say it, people. I'm going to say something. There's no sisters right here, at least in this part. But I'm going to say something. One of the things that we don't prepare our men for is this type of conniving that comes from engaging the opposite sex. And it ends where brothers get violent. It ends where brothers get charged for domestic violence and they end up in prison, or they end up losing their licenses. We're not talking about that to the brothers. Why? Because automatically we fall into the same stereotype that everybody else is falling into. Men are violent, men are this, men are that. But we're not teaching men how these types of situations, when they get out of hand, can work totally against them. And in this case, what? The woman has what? She has power, buddy. She has power. And she's using that power in a way to destabilize Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. What's amazing from this story is that Yusuf, not from the angle of his father, but from the angle of his brothers, he's in a dysfunctional situation with his brothers. I mean, that's dysfunction. You see what I'm saying? Where they attempted to kill him. And they didn't do that. They caused him harm. Then he's in a society where he's an upright, righteous person. He's an innocent person that was a victim of family violence. You see what I'm saying? And he ends up in this type of situation. And he's thinking of the well-being of the guy. He's thinking of the favor that the guy, did for him, and the guy turns around. That doesn't mean anything. And part of the dilemma that we have in this time period is we start to question about why bad things happen to good people. You know what I'm saying? That's the favorite of the atheists and others, to try to say that God doesn't exist, and that's the favorite of people to say, well, you know what? Do you? Make sure that you get what you need to get, and to abandon what? To abandon what? Yeah, your deen. And though that really there, and I want to end on that point, that's what we have. That's the type of lessons that we have to teach to the youth. How to deal with that sticky stuff, right? When life is hitting you hard, that's important. How do you maintain when life is hitting you hard? Because you see some people, they go from multiple sets of hardships to another multiple sets of hardships, right? And so the question is, how do you stay firm in that? And again, when we go back and we look at the real education of Yusuf, Yusuf was really clear on what life is about. And that's kind of what we're missing. Because many of us think the dunya is supposed to be what? Yes. We have the dunya confused. We have Jannah and the dunya confused. The dunya is not Jannah. It's hardship in these, What do you mean by that?
That's not a must, because all the prophets, they were the best of us, and they had hardships like no tomorrow, like none of us can handle.
But he's not saying there won't be any hardships.
That's not true.
No, he's not saying that there will not be hardships. He's not denying that the dunya has hardships. He's talking about your sense of well-being. Yes, your sense of ease of heart. There's truth to that. That's a state for the believer. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, let's end it for sure with this. What do we say? Alhamdulillah ala kulli hal. Alhamdulillah ala kulli hal. So is hardship? Alhamdulillah. Ease? Alhamdulillah. The both are equal. We're not confused by this state or by this state, and we're staying firm with Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. So let's end there, inshallah. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to protect us and to guide us and to aid us, inshallah.